Hello everyone, once again I'm Enrique and welcome to another review for X-Men 97, the second part of Tolerance is Extinction, episode 9. We are in the penultimate episode of the series and afterwards is going to be the finale. Once again, I must recommend that if you haven't seen my thoughts or the entire show of X-Men 97, I highly recommend you watch that show because it's really, really good, as well as watch my thoughts so you can get an idea of what I thought about the entire show and the episodes individually. So, when we last left off, we saw the Bastion is controlling the humans using a virus that Mr. Sinister created, and the X-Men discover where Bastion's origins come from, where he is from, his entire lineage, and his plans for the future. And afterwards, after they survive the humanoid sentinels, Magneto cuts off the entire magnetic field on the entire planet Earth, meaning that the planet only has minutes before it starts dying. And on top of all that, Professor X returns, meaning that he has to find a way to restore the magnetic field to the entire planet and save the people on Earth while stopping Bastion. So yeah, the X-Men are uniting in this case, and we're going to see a lot of shocking moments. So brace yourselves for Tolerance's Extinction Part 2. The episode begins by watching our favorite characters trying to figure out what's going on and going back to the mansion. We see Jubilee and Roberto escaping from a mob in which they are saved by Forge and Storm with her powers returning. We see Charles Xavier waking up the next day and realizing what happened to his school and getting out some of the things in order to organize himself. A lot of thoughts, a lot of mindsets. Bastion carrying his mother, who has been affected by the humanoid sentinel that he himself did to his own mother, and basically starts crying, showing a little bit of humanity to this character, even though he's an egotistical jackass. But yeah, this is the moment where we see Cyclops and Jean confront Professor X about the decision of making Magneto the leader of the X-Men. Something that for Cyclops it didn't settle well, even though he tried to adapt to the wishes of Professor X. Charles explains that he didn't want the burden of carrying his mission and his dream to others, especially to his first X-Men. Remember that Cyclops and Jean are his first students, and basically he saw them grow up, and he didn't want to see Cyclops and Jean to live, not being able to live a normal life if he had to carry on his dream, and somebody has to carry on even though he never died. He thought that Magneto was the best choice because not only he has been around for a long time and they have been friends, but also because he thought that Magneto was a good man to carry on, to follow his dreams and hopefully to redeem him. But it all led to disaster and to separation between families and especially the X-Men. And that's something that Cyclops finds hard to forgive. Honestly, it is almost feels like Charles didn't have enough trust to Cyclops and Jean to carry on. But that's something that we all know. Charles, we all adore Charles. He's a man who believes in a good dream, but he's not perfect, and that's something that this episode highlights. That despite his best intentions and despite his dreams, he doesn't always make the best decisions, and often his decisions can be a little bit too irrational or sometimes stupid. As we see making Magneto the leader of the X-Men even though he has other dreams. Speaking of which, we see Magneto once again donning his original costume as a villain, even his helmet, and starts making an island from the ocean. Afterwards, we see that Storm is reuniting with the X-Men, especially with Jean, because throughout the entire show, they consider each other as sisters. So something that I really enjoy, and that's something that I really like to see, that both Storm and Jean are like sisters, not in blood, but by choice. Once again, going back to what Nightcrawler says, their family is by choice and not always by blood, and that's something I really enjoy. But yeah, as Storm is reuniting with the X-Men, Forge talks to Beast and with the others about his technology that he uses. You see, Forge has a robotic leg in which it's impervious to magnetic fields. Basically, it protects him from anything, including the force field or the magnetic fields that Magneto can proceed. And that gives Beast an idea, as well as Forge allows Beast to experiment with this technology. The X-Men are strategizing an idea or a plan in order to stop not only Magneto but also Bastion. The idea is that if they stop Bastion before they stop Magneto, that will save the entire world. You see, Bastion is basically a human controller. He can control the humanoid sentinels as well as other forms of sentinels with his own mind, meaning that they had to create a device that can not only prevent him from controlling all the sentinels, even the human ones, but it will convince Magneto that to return or restore the magnetic fields of the entire planet, therefore saving the planet and the people in it. But that's something that they cannot do in one go. They had to split into two teams. And this is where Beast and Forge come up with the idea of creating some sort of psychic damper, in the one that they used on Jean when she was in the Dark Phoenix Force. It was an idea in order to prevent the psychics from controlling anything using their powers. Using this doohickey, as they call it, they're plan to put it on Bastion in order to damper his abilities to control the Sentinels, and hopefully the entire planet will be rid of this entire humanoid Sentinel invasion. And afterwards, the entire team, the other half of the team, are going to negotiate with Magneto in order to restore the magnetic fields of the planet Earth. But that's, like I said, it has to be split on to two teams. To make matters even complicated, as Rogue is still grieving the loss of Gambit, and Charles tries to appeal to her, convince her that this is something that he wishes he was there for, and maybe none of this would have happened. Rogue doesn't listen to reason, and it makes matters are even made worse when Magneto arrives with a floating island. Now, if you remember from the original X-Men, we saw that Magneto created his own floating island away from Earth, hoping that he will take away all the mutants from the world and maybe republish or repopulate in another planet. But that was an idea that had its own bad consequences, and it was very hard for Magneto. But he decides to try it again, and with the help of Rogue and with Sunspot, after he realizes how disappointed he was with his own mother after she turned him in to the humanoid Sentinels, that's something that he just doesn't want to be part of. He doesn't want to be part of Earth and says, screw them all, I'd rather live. And that's something that, yeah, it puts in conflict with Jubilee. But I'm going to get into that in a moment. Regardless, the X-Men cannot form a plan in the X-Mansion. They have to go to Muir Island in order to reorganize, use the equipment that they have there to create a psychic damper, and hopefully to get better gear in order for them to go into the mission. And that's something that we see. We see Forge and Beast creating the psychic damper, and we get a nice moment between Cyclops and Cable. Scott has been has been very mindful, or at the very least trying to understand the situation that he is in, how he ever got there, his relationship with Madeline and Jean, as well as with his relationship with Cable, Nathan Summers. Basically, he's telling to Cable that no matter what, he's always going to be proud of him, and that he's going to give him advice that, hey, whatever happens, you can take care of your mother or take care of Jean and hopefully get out of life and give him hell, son. Basically, like that is definitely something that they don't always say, except the part of give him hell, because that's something that it's a nice moment between Scott and Cable. It shows that Cyclops, despite everything, he still cares about people and he wants to do the right thing. And no matter what, he believes in the X-Men more so than he believes in himself. And that's one of the best things about Cyclops, that he puts the needs of others before his. That makes him a hero, in my opinion. We get also a moment in which Scott gives Cable part of his suit so he can become more like an X-Men. And one of the best dialogues that we hear from both of them is this. Cable says, am I going to a fight or a circus? And Scott says, what do you expect? Black leather? Guys, that is not only a great callback to the X-Men movies, but it's also a great way to say, screw you, Bryan Singer, and your black leather suits. We like the colorful ones. The yellow spandex, yeah, it's even cooler than black leather. And it is only fitting that Cyclops says that, because if you remember in the movie X-Men from Bryan Singer, the live action version of Cyclops, who's played by James Marsden, says this: what do you prefer, yellow spandex? And everybody was upset about that line. And when this version of Cyclops says, what do you expect, black leather? It's basically saying, yeah, screw you, Bryan Singer. We like our yellow spandex. We get a moment in which we see President Robert Kelly talking to Xavier about what are they going to do with Magneto and Bastion. So the team is going to split up into two teams. X-Men Blue, which is comprised of Cyclops, Nightcrawler, Jubilee, and Professor Xavier, and Team Gold, which is comprised of Forge, Storm, Jean, Beast, and Cable. And Morph, sorry. And Wolverine is also in Team Blue, so they are going to go into different ways. And basically says this, as Charles tells to Robert Kelly, that if he doesn't believe in him, that to please believe in the X-Men, to have faith in them one more time. And we see both teams parting their ways to their individual missions. Both Jean and Scott saying goodbye to each other. They don't say that in dialogue, but they say that with expressions. I really enjoy this moment. And basically we see the X-Men in two fronts. We see Team Gold attacking Bastion and his Sentinels, and we see Team Blue going after Magneto, Rogue, and Sunspot. It's a battle in two fronts. We get cool moments, morphing into Hulk, which is really nice. We get superpowers, entire attacks. We see Sunspot and Jubilee fighting. We see Rogue trying to stop the X-Men. We see Magneto telling Charles, shut up. We see Jean kicking ass against Mr. Sinister, only for Mr. Sinister to use an ace on his sleeves, and controls Cable in order to attack Jean Grey, which presumes her dead. Yeah, Jean dead. It must be Tuesday, right? But not technically. Don't worry. It's not going to be the way you think. But yeah, it's basically an attack on all fronts. The X-Men are trying their best to fight in both fronts. Xavier tries to appeal to Magneto's humanity, but it doesn't work. So he has no choice but to use his powers after he gets his after Wolverine gets the helmet away from Magneto and uses his powers to reverse Magneto's powers. But that's something that Cyclops doesn't want to, because the thing is, the Team Gold, they haven't stopped Bastion or put the second damper in his head. They still need more time. And Cyclops, in a very shocking moment, Cyclops has to shoot his lasers on Xavier to stop him, which in turn makes Magneto use his powers to make everybody to stop fighting. And then Wolverine stabs Magneto in the back. And this is going to lead to the final part of this episode, in which after Wolverine stupefyingly stabs Magneto in the back, not realizing that Magneto can control metal, and Magneto, without holding back, uses his powers to not only stop Wolverine, but also to remove the entire adamantium skeleton from his body, basically out of his body. Magneto basically pay homage to a moment in the comics in which Magneto uses his powers to throw away or to get rid of the adamantium skeleton of Wolverine's body. Meaning that, yeah, Wolverine is basically adamantium-less. And boy, they made that scene look very, very painful, and Jesus Christ. It just comes to show you that Wolverine is not always the best at what he does. And whenever he does, it's sometimes really stupid and really, really, really idiotic. And by trying to kill Magneto, it made Wolverine look like an idiot, and it made him have his entire adamantium body be purged out of his system. So yeah, basically he's out of adamantium, and we're going to see how it affects in the next season or in the next episode. So, but don't worry, Wolverine has the healing factor, so he's going to heal, but it's going to be different. So yeah, basically this is what happens when you're trying to fight the master magnetism, especially if you have adamantium in your body. That's just wow. But basically, yeah, that's how the episode ends, with a shocking moment in which we see the team of the X-Men in two fronts trying to fight a good battle but still losing. And we saw the shocking moment of Wolverine getting his adamantium body out of his entire body. It just comes to show you, if you're a fan of Wolverine, you might be pissed, but you have to admit, it was pretty cool to see. But yeah, overall, I have a great cliffhanger for the next episode. We see a lot of surprises, a lot of moments, a lot of action. The animation, boy, the animation is stellar. Let me tell you, this is the best action that we have seen out of the X-Men thus far. And hopefully the quality can remain in the next episode and beyond. So yeah, watch this because it has some of the best moments. So now that we have talked about this episode, next week is going to be the finale of Tolerance is Extinction and the first season of X-Men. There's a lot of shock, a lot of moments, a lot of OMG moments. There's a lot. So guys, I hope you enjoy this review. I highly recommend it. It's pretty action-packed, but yeah, basically I really enjoyed it, and hopefully you guys can enjoy it too. But overall, I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Next week, like I said, is the final episode, and afterwards we are going to do other episodes from different shows. So I've been Enrique, and I'll see you next time. Take care.